we decided to dig into Netflix, which always has new movies coming out and movies that sometimes nobody sees, like Johnny. And we're gonna
for a reason.
pull it out, dust it off. It's brand new this week, so we are looking at a movie called A Day and a Half. I think I'm gonna start this one out. Uh, A Day and a Half. Let's see here. It's got ooh. This morning it had 409 votes on IMDb. It's up to 490 now, so
There
that's
we go.
something. Zach, is it still at 0 on Rotten Tomatoes?
It was, but
Not
see,
zero
that's what makes
percent,
this
but 0 reviews.
that's what makes this
There.
so fun. We can't rely on critics. Like we have to actually come up. First of all, we have to watch it. We can't just Wikipedia that shit. Not that I've ever done that to a movie we've reviewed, but
Never, never
we
would do
have.
that.
It's integrity. It's like taking a test without the calculator, right, Terry? Do you allow kids to ever use calculate? Like that's no
Sometimes,
calculator. I'm sorry, I'm getting into your review, but I just think it's fun to do movies that we're totally blind about.
absolutely, it truly is. So this is a Swedish film, and it is written, directed, and starring a guy named Ferris, who has been in some stuff which I didn't even realize. Like he's been in a Star Wars movie. He's in the new Amazon Prime show, well not new, but Wheel of Time, which just debuted its second season this weekend also. Anyway, so he's kind of been around. He is a police officer who comes across a scene at a medical facility where a man named Arton, played by Alexej Manvilov, yeah, I think that's how you say his name. Probably not. Who has walked into a medical facility, demanded to see his wife, and is holding the medical facility at gunpoint. His wife is Louise, played by Alma Poisty, and Lucas, who's the character played by Ferris, goes up there as the first cop on the scene. It's going to be a while before the task force can get there, and he decides he's going to try and negotiate what's going on. And really, it's just a family drama. This guy feels like he's been wronged by his wife or ex-wife or soon to be ex-wife, and he just wants to see his daughter, and he feels like she's been stolen away. And so you start to feel for this character. But the ends don't justify the means in any way. And it turns in it's really messy. Eventually, they end up in a car because they're gonna say, okay, let's give him what he wants to an extent and see how far we can go. Lucas is then driving Arton and Louise around, trying to find the daughter, trying to get to the daughter, and it the majority of the movie takes place in the car. And it really becomes a character study, not only of Arton, but also Louise and Lucas along the way, while also having this intense car chase. I mean, it's a car chase, but I mean, it's like the OJ car chase. They're going like 30 miles an hour down the highway, but it's still there's the tension there. There's gunpoint the whole time, but also you have these tender character study moments. I I kind of got into this movie. I feel like it dragged on. It's a 94-minute movie, but it also kind of dragged and extended some things out longer than it needed to. There's a certain level of disbelief you have to take with it in what they allow him to do, but then again, that might be a cultural thing of what Swedish negotiators would allow for something to happen like this, where in America it wouldn't. This guy would have been gunned down the second he stepped foot near anything, which he's kind of irrationally afraid of a lot of different things, and you kind of you understand, but also he's kind of freaking everybody out and doing it as well. Um, Alexej, who plays Arton, I think is amazing. He gives a brilliant performance, and Ferris Lucas is very good as well. I feel like if this were an American movie, it would star John Bernthal and Clifton Collins Jr. Because they're dead ringers for the two leads. Uh, I'm giving it 3 stars. I had some problems with kind of how the storytelling played out, but I feel like It kept my attention. It was gripping throughout, and I feel like the ending kind of paid off a little bit as well. So 3 stars for me on a day and a half. Let's go to Zach next.
Yeah. So as I was saying, it's fun to go into these movies totally blind. We are like 1 for 2 because it really worked with The Stranger. We loved that movie, and we all really hated Johnny. So this one, I thought was pretty gripping from the start. Now, listen, I am a sucker for hostage movies. Okay, I love Dog Day Afternoon. I love the movie where Dustin Hoffman's the bank robber. I love. The first 50 minutes of The Place Beyond the Pines. I mean, this is great. You really can't go wrong with a hostage movie unless it's John Q. But even John Q, I'm willing to rewatch, as I mentioned a while ago. And actually, this one has some uncanny parallels to John Q, which also took place in a hospital.
I
This
always think
movie,
of The
although
Negotiator with Kevin
yeah,
Spacey
and
and
Negotiator is a good movie too.
Samuel Jackson.
Actually, I thought a little bit of Ransom in this movie. I also thought of A Perfect World, the Clint Eastwood movie, which is also essentially a hostage movie with a little kid in it, and it's also a road movie too. But anyway, this has some distinctly Swedish features, kind of like what you were saying, Terry, in the sense of they don't really seem to be aggressive hostage negotiators. They all seem very chill. Lucas, in particular, is like he has this almost Zen-like presence to him, which is kind of fascinating. It's all very slow and controlled and mannered. I wonder if that's just a cultural thing. Maybe it's in Europe, the police aren't just expected to break in and kill people. Probably. But I kind of loved this movie. I was from the first scene, I was really taken with it. I thought it was a fascinating series of events that I couldn't quite predict. And even though I've seen movies that were somewhat like this, I think what makes this one stand out is that essentially it goes from a formula, which is hostage and negotiation and taking the wife and the baby hostage, to much more, especially in the last 30 to 35 minutes, being about like almost a requiem for a relationship that had died. And we were kind of left to put the pieces together. The movie, I think, wisely doesn't do any flashbacks. The characters are all in the same clothes the entire movie, which would be a fun power ranking, by the way. Best movies where characters are in the same clothes the whole movie. And we kind of have to like still together the dysfunctional family components. There's obviously some elements of immigration and nativism in this story. Louise's family are, I think, pretty nativist in their beliefs, and they think that this guy is an Arab, and they don't like that. They're pretty shitty people, and you almost wonder, like, I think what's cool about the movie is that Lucas doesn't say a lot. He can't say a lot because he's in this position as a negotiator, but you almost wonder at times if he starts sympathizing a bit for the main character, Arton, and he never says it, but again, it's through looks. And I like movies like that. I like movies that do reaction shots where you kind of have to guess what the character's thinking. It doesn't tell you right away. It's not ham-handed. It's not over the top. And again, as this movie's going on, it's unpredictable. The way that it concludes, I think, is really interesting. It's not a shootout. I mean, without spoiling too much, an American movie would have been so much more over the top. And again, this movie becomes much more, like you said, Terry, a character study, a sad movie about a relationship that obviously had gone totally off the wheels. And that becomes more important than the other components of a chase. And it's interesting looking at the Lucas character, too. I was also reminded a little bit of that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie he did a few years ago where he was the pilot in the middle of a hostage situation, which I like.
Was that like
I liked more than you
9500?
guys. Yeah, that's it. And that also was a movie that it was about a high...
7500.
It was a high stress, anxiety ridden situation, but the movie also had a weird kind of calmness because it was just essentially a conversation piece between two characters, just like this movie is between 3 characters. I really got into it. I kind of love this movie. I give it 3.5 stars, and I think people should check it out. I don't know why it's not getting more buzz on Netflix, but I thought it was kind of awesome.
Todd, where are you at?
I mean, it just came out. It's not like a foreign movie's going to be like a banger right off the bat, unless it's Squid Game or something. But what's interesting about this movie is, depending on where you look, you're going to get a completely different plot description. Like I looked in like 3 different places, and it changes the movie because like each way that the log line is written could be from the perspective of one of the 3 characters, in which I've never really seen that happen before. But I had no idea who was actually going to be the lead going into this movie. It's just interesting. And when I knew this movie was a little bit different than most movies like this was when he's just like, I don't even know why these people are still here. Yeah, they can all go. He's like, he's not interested in actually taking hostages. He just wants to like get his daughter or his son or whatever it is.
Has that ever happened in a movie? That's never happened in a movie.
I know. That's what I said. That's when I knew it was different. I was like, yeah. I feel like he doesn't even care about those people sitting there. They're just freaked out because he has a gun. Yeah, I think this movie's pretty good. It's really stressful. There are several parts that I was on edge. Like, and in the waiting room, there were these sounds of like cell phones ringing, and then like the ready tone thing that were so loud you could just hear, like you like feel and hear it and see it just eating away at Arton and putting him even more on edge, which is why he eventually exploded. Because like you try to figure out like what kind of mental state does someone have to be in to take such an extreme action, because you see that just one flare up, that one little mistake, overreaction is going to make you do something irreversible and life changing. And it's just spontaneity of this one little crime, and he has no other option and no other plan. But you feel for him because you kind of like him because he's like a wounded soul, but you know it's not going to end well. Like to me, it most reminded me of The Next 3 Days, which is the Paul Haggis movie. It's a great movie, but in that there's like an elaborate plan, and it was like more technical in how it's told, and there was very little left to chance. But here, like everything's left to chance because he has no idea what he's doing, and you just don't know where it's going to end, and you're just kind of along for the ride, which is kind of a cool feeling. Yeah, the dynamics between the characters are unclear, and I feel like they get murkier as it goes along when you find more about them. It's just a really interesting screenplay, and yeah, it's a bummer that it's straight to Netflix because it's a pretty claustrophobic movie, and it could have been really cool time at the theater. Terry, you said Clifton Collins Jr. I think the guy was like Paul Mescal, but the character definitely would have been like Shia LaBeouf if it was made in the U.S. But it's it's an interesting movie. It's a 3-star movie. It does things that make it different than just like what it could have been, which is like an episode of Standoff or something. It was just a cool movie.
Yeah, the other one I was thinking of too is there's a little bit of breaking in there, the John Boyega movie from last year, where it's like this hostage situation, but the stakes of what he wants are so low in comparison to the act that is taken. And that I felt like that was a good
Well,
comparison.
that's like Airheads.
Well, yes,
There's
but that
definitely some
played for a
Airheads in this
completely different different way. Yeah, it's thrice approved. It's definitely a movie you should be checking out on Netflix for sure. One thing I was thinking as I was watching this, so it's really just 3 characters like the entire time. If we were doing like awards, where would these guys like pop up? Like the Arton, Lucas, are they both leads? Are they co-leads? Is Arton the lead and Lucas supporting? I was trying to wrap my brain around that as I consider where they might fall on future lists for us.
Well, it's a TV movie. I don't know that we would consider it, but it's I think that the lead is Arton, but IMDb makes it seem like the lead is Lucas. But you look somewhere
Well,
else.
he's
It's
also the
different.
writer director. That might be why he's in the name attached to it. So
I think it's similar to The Stranger, which we also disagreed with last year. I think it's appropriate to call both of them leads. I thought where you were going, Terry, was like our awards, like Arton. Well, Lucas is kind of a stick man because it's revealed that he has many paramours, but that would be a fun list too.
well, they
I
both
think this.
do.
I guess that's true. Yeah, that's a fair point. The Stickman race is just like the Best Actor race. Now, I think this movie is really fascinating. Like I said, I think if this was an American movie, it would have been so cheesy and so over the top, and it would have been so labyrinthine with cutaways to headquarters and what the sheriff's plan is to kind of break them. It's almost like Arton has seen too many of those movies because like he's paranoid, and that's just another element to the movie. Like he's afraid that they poison his coffee. He's obsessed with making sure that no one can look through the window. Like that to me is also just a fascinating character quirk that plays into the movie really, really nicely, and maybe says something about the character that he is just this kind of very he's hot-headed. I think it's fascinating. Like I love the conversations over the radio with the police where they're trying to plan out, well, can they get a plane? Well, the plane won't let them on with a gun. Okay, well, where they're going to go to the boat. Like the whole world of this movie is fascinating, and what maybe is even the most fascinating thing about it is you see so little of it. It's just over the radio, and the movie is so self-contained with the characters that I think that actually generates a lot of suspense too. And Todd, you're wrong to say it's as good as the next 3 days, because it's only a day and a half, so it's only half the movie that the next 3 days could have possibly
That's
been.
true. It definitely isn't as good as the next 3 days. It just is like it.
Uh, well, and then you also have the potential racial undertones that are there that Arton feels are there in every action that's being taken. And then at one point you realize that there might be a reason why he's a little paranoid about potential racial undertones. But I think the other thing that is really interesting with this that goes into some of those quirks with it is how this is a Swedish movie, and you have that cultural piece to it that takes this in a different direction. Like there's the line at one point where Arton is constantly like, they're gonna snipe me. And I can't do that because you got a sniper waiting for me." And Lucas says something along the lines of, "Yeah, I don't even know where we would get one of those."
Yeah, or like the plane that's stuck in Hong Kong, and they would have to get permission from the prime minister to get it. Like I've never, again, that's another thing you've never seen one of these movies. Like, in Dog Day Afternoon or anything, they have unlimited resources seemingly. This movie, like, it's the hottest day of the summer, and they're like three hours away. I mean, they're very kind of like ragtag police. So Lucas is not only dealing with this stressed out guy, but he's dealing with, basically a police force that can't help him for shit because they're all disorganized too. Like, it's fascinating and different.
I don't think that was the point at all. I mean, they were just going along with whatever he said because they knew he'd eventually put himself into a trap because he obviously had no idea what he was doing. And that's why he just kept going with it. But you could tell that Lucas was just a little annoyed that it kept going. It's like, no, we're going to go to the next place. It's like, no, it's like a 5-hour drive. They're like, let's go. And he's like, I got to keep driving. I've been doing this for a day and a half, but I got to keep going.
Well,
So
and Lucas, he keeps asking Arton to take his finger off the trigger. I think Lucas has seen Pulp Fiction
Yeah,
because
I
he
was thinking
definitely
that the
saw
Melvin
Marvin's
scene.
face happening
Marvin.
there.
Yeah.
yeah, he was never wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, it's a really fun movie, and we've got 3 stars from me, 3 stars from Todd, 3.5 from Zach. It's thrice approved. Like we said, barely anybody has seen this. So if you like being like the first one on something, or to discover something that's out there that nobody else has seen, a day and a half. It's on Netflix. It's worth the watch. Check it out.
Yeah, it's way better than any trash that's in theaters out right now, and it's also way better than Pete Conrad.
Way better than Pete Conrad. Yep. I like
Is
it.
Bottoms any good, Terry?
Bottoms is bonkers. That's about all I'll say for now.